Evening and welcome to the June 9th, 2025 City Council Work Session. Thank you for joining us in this hybrid meeting format. For work sessions like this one, there is no opportunity for public comment. Those wishing to access the meeting can do so by watching the live stream available on our website, the broadcast on Comcast Channel 21, or by calling into one of the phone numbers listed for this meeting on the public webcasts and meetings materials page, the City of Eugene website. In case of a medical emergency, an automated external defibrillator, an AED, is located on the counter behind staff on the left or the west side of this room. And in case of an emergency evacuation, emergency exit doors are through the double doors located at the back of the room, and the doors to the patio can also be used as needed. Thank you all again for joining us. I call the June 9th, 2025 City Council Work Session to order. And our first topic is an executive session. And I'll turn it over to the city attorney.
Well, actually,
in a
the first
moment.
thing you will do is read the script.
Yep.
Yep, thank
So Eugene City Council will now meet in executive session held pursuant to ORS 192.660-2H. Representatives of the news media and designated staff shall be allowed to attend the executive session, and all other members of the audience are asked to leave the meeting. Representatives of the news media are specifically directed not to record or report on any of the deliberations during the executive session, except to state the general subject of the session as previously announced. No decision may be made in executive session, and at the end of executive session, we will return to open session and welcome the audience back into the meeting. For counselors attending virtually, work session on the vehicle repair program.
Thank you, Mayor. Because of time, I'm just going to turn it directly over to Jeff Petrie, who's going to lead us through a conversation.
Oh, thank you. Is that better? Okay. Sorry. Hello, Mayor and Council. All right. Oops.
Presentation mode.
All right, I'll take that. That can help. All right, good evening. Jeff Petrie, the Curbside Admin Services Director. Tonight's topic comes from a work session we had a little over a year ago in 2024 where council adopted some new code amendments to Chapter 5 transportation, but they were parking related. And during that conversation, we also discussed coming back tonight to talk about how the code amendments are working, as well as a concept around a vehicle repair program. So tonight I'll talk about those two topics in two different sections here. First of all, I'll talk about the first piece around parking amendments. And at the time, we were talking about vehicles that repeatedly get the same citations or repeat violators of the parking code. And in the Chapter 5 parking amendments, we made, council made several changes. Some were more of around the business, the parking enterprise fund. So the meter cap hourly rate was removed. The parking fine schedule was increased. Those had not been changed since the 1980s. There were some other adjustments that happened in there that supported the parking enterprise fund. These three code changes really address some of the repeat parking violations. One was around parking time limits. Prior to the code amendment, a vehicle, say around the campus area or downtown in a 2-hour parking zone, you could park in that area, you could drive 2 blocks away, technically park, and then repark. And that met the code. It created ambiguity for enforcement and ambiguity for courts around adjudication, appeals process. And so the code amendment required the car to be parked essentially until the next day. Once you moved out of that 2-hour zone, you couldn't return until the next morning, midnight after that next morning. For us, that clarified the expectation for the parking customer, clarified how appeals and how the adjudication process worked in court, and it made it less ambiguous, thank you, for our parking customers out there. The second amendment was larger size vehicles and places of sleeping accommodations. These are semis, RVs, kind of larger vehicles that are parked in residential neighborhoods or motels, hotels. The concept there was to address an ability to add an impoundment or a tow if a vehicle had the same violation within the fourth violation within 90 days. We really haven't experienced that. What we see is turnover and we see movement. And so this code there has met that need in creating turnover and creating movement. We have not had to issue those impoundment notices. The third change was vehicle discharge violations, mostly around concepts of gray water and black water from RVs and other vehicles. But for us, it allowed a parking officer or a neighborhood officer to also issue that violation in Chapter 5 Transportation Code. Eugene Police Department could issue that violation in Chapter 4. We really have not seen very many of these cases in the last year since we met. I would say that the majority of the instances are everyday vehicles that are leaking hazardous fluids in our parking garages and our surface lots that radiators burst, oil pans. It happens, and so it has allowed us to address some of the toxic substances that we're finding in our structures. So our experience over the last year is that we did modernize our rate schedule and our fine schedule. And we implemented code changes that's reduced parking behaviors that contribute to frequent movements and repeat violations. And that, that's that one right there. One of the, coming off the vehicle discharge, and our conversations, the second part of the motion followed up on vehicle maintenance and one's ability to get their vehicle repaired, including one's ability to own their vehicle. And so at the time, the council asked staff to develop a proposal for a program that provides resources in addition to or in lieu of parking citations to individuals living in their vehicles, including but not limited to vehicle repair. In the AIS, we provided some examples across the country of some vehicle repair programs. I've highlighted a few here. Cook County, Illinois, some free vehicle light repair, mostly around probably taillights and headlights. Hennepin County in Minnesota, about $75,000 to help residents maintain a safe and reliable way to get to work. Stark County, Ohio, through United Way, provides financial assistance up to $2,000. Hocking, Athens, and Perry, Ohio, the residents are eligible for repairs up to $2,500. They also have a program that helps train future automotive mechanics to work on such vehicles. And there's a list of various vehicles, and apologize for the smaller print in the AIS. These programs are funded at various levels, $75,000 up to millions of dollars. Vehicle repair can be very expensive. RV repair can be even more expensive. And there's a lot of options that are out there. But nearly all the programs had one commonality as we dug into the research, and it's the requirement to legally operate the vehicle on the street. And that includes owning the vehicle that you operate, having a valid registration, having current insurance, and having a valid driver's license. So to repair the vehicle, what we felt that we learned from the communities is that to work on this vehicle, the other programs that we saw across the country had that as a base requirement. And last year at the work session, council talked about getting one's vehicle registration up to date, amongst other ideas for vehicle repairs. We took that information along with connecting out to our local community service providers and looking at the data around things that we commonly see with our code compliance, which expired tags is a common theme that in the last year, it's about 100, 150 citations per month we issue for that. It was double that in the previous year and other previous years. So as we thought about budget and we thought about what is the most impactful to our community that could have the greatest benefit, our team came up with an idea, what we're calling the Vehicle Navigator Pilot Program. And what this program does, the who, what, where, why, it would be an FTE, 20 hours a week, contracted out with our community. This individual would have knowledge of DMV, would have knowledge of insurance, how to get ownership of your vehicle. It helps you get valid plates, up-to-date plates, and then make sure you have a valid driver's license. This person, the where, I've talked to Judge Gill and the municipal court. There's a space in our provider room at community court. This person could sit in there. This person could also be in other provider spaces around the community to help our individuals obtain a vehicle that can legally operate on our streets. In talking to various providers, we feel that a one-year pilot will cost about $35,000. And the why on this recommendations, there's several reasons why. One's from a public safety standard where we want vehicles operating on our streets that are legally allowed to be on our streets. But the other part of the why is that if a vehicle does get impounded, it goes to the tow yard. If you don't have ownership of that vehicle, you can't get that vehicle out. You need to show interest in a vehicle. You cannot get your personal items out of that vehicle. And through this pilot program is a proposal that we feel that we could work with municipal court to develop, if it moved forward, parameters around using our validity hearings, our other types of hearings that Judge Gill manages, around having individuals go through that program as an off-ramp to being legal on the street and legal to their ownership. and then back on the street with their vehicles. That was a very quick summary in the shorter time we had tonight. So here for questions. I'm happy to flip back.
Thank you very much for that presentation. I now open the floor for council discussion. Councilor Leach.
Thank you so much, Jeff, for this presentation, for the work that you have done to explore this topic. A year ago, we did talk about all these amendments, and my main concern, and I voted no at that time because I thought, okay, let's make it easier to impound vehicles, but don't pair it with something that's going to make it less likely. So are we just cycling over and over again, moving these people around even more? Could you give actually some more data about that, about how that's going? You've mentioned we haven't really been impounding more vehicles, but that there's still this kind of constant motion. And then can you put some numbers to, if you can, how much does it cost us as the city in contracts to tow individual vehicles and to store them and to, keep them for the time frame that if somebody can't get it back because they don't technically own it, what's that monetary value to the city?
I will have to follow up on a couple of those pieces. I can talk about the city's tow contract. I can talk about a few other things. The city does not, we are tow contracts managed by the Eugene Police Department. We only pay tow fees for larger size vehicles, and there's kind of a per mile and a per weight fee that the city would pay for that. When it goes into the impound yard, we do not pay storage fees from the city side, but it is possible that eventually that if that vehicle goes unclaimed, it becomes owned by the tow yard themselves. That vehicle can either be resold, reparted, or demolished. We do have a contract that with our hazardous waste companies, many of the RVs and campers with asbestos and other toxic materials that may be in it, they are disposed of. It could go from $700 per vehicle to $1,500, $1,800 in that range. It really depends on the type of vehicle that is impounded and what's contained within that vehicle at the testing. When I looked at other pieces of data, the time limit violations are about the same. It's all around the University of Oregon, primarily the 2-hour zones of downtown. There hasn't been much change year to year. There's just been less ambiguity in the appeals process of how we work through that. The neighborhoods around larger vehicles and places of sleeping accommodation, what we're finding is that when rules are applied, vehicles follow those rules. And so when I say rotating around, it means that a vehicle may be in the neighborhood, but it may not be there for the next 90 days. So we really haven't seen much change in terms of the number of complaints necessarily. They are down a little bit from a year ago, but it's still in that ballpark. And then our third one, I'll flip back here, vehicle discharging. Boy, we don't track that as a data source, but it's not something our officers have, in the last 6 months, 9 months, they've impounded vehicles for that, but it's not something that we track around the discharging.
Thank you for that extra data. In my mind, I think 35,000 is such a small amount to start something that could have a really profound impact on people who are living in their vehicles. When I talk to Legal Aid, Oregon Law Center, they also say the same thing, that one of the top things that they're looking at, talking to people about, and addressing is this idea of registration and ID and all of the executive functioning that it takes to get through all of those processes. Like having a navigator could be really profound for some of these folks to actually get street legal, as you kind of phrased it. I think it would save us at least that amount of money in terms of what time it takes to go, through that process of enforcement and things. So for me, I would really love to see us supporting this program. I know we have a tough budget cycle, but this is a small piece. I think that is going to be preventative and and do a lot of things for our community. So I'm interested in hearing what my colleagues have to say and maybe having a second round.
Councillor Keating.
Thank you, Mayor. Thanks, Jeff. I could support the Navigator pilot program for the reasons that have been articulated, but I'm also curious, because just anecdotally, I'm still seeing vehicles that I assume are inoperable, parked not just in front of houses, but literally in front of houses, like not on the street, but parked in the front yards. Whereas other municipalities might have a lot stronger, more stringent code that would mandate that an RV, for example, could not be parked in the front or a side yard. How does a neighbor know if said vehicle is operable or not? You could assume if it hasn't moved for months upon months at a time. How do they know if there's no insurance or if there's no registration or if that person doesn't have a driver's license? You could assume someone's living in it or not. And are there mechanisms for us to possibly strengthen any of these codes to prohibit parking literally in your front yard, or are those already on the books?
I would, I guess, in part of that conversation, the code question will come back last year. One of the things that we don't know is the officers that work in our community, they don't just go running tags, and they need a complaint.
Right.
So that's the first step. That's the first question that I have. Did they get that complaint? I know that our neighborhood service officers, they have a 24-hour to 36-hour response rate. So if that vehicle comes in, one way to determine that is by seeing the orange sticker, or there's a different blue sticker for expired tags now that we have out there. So that's one indication. And then once that, once we do our process, either the vehicle moves or it's impounded or goes somewhere else. That could be off-site to a neighbor's house. So I think our current process that we have now works if we know about what's happening. We don't always get the complaints filed online about those vehicles. That's one answer about how to know. In terms of code, I think we did talk about this a little bit last time. I'm trying to remember all the words that Catherine used. I think you said it's always possible to draft an item. I think what we think about is we have a lot of RVs and other vehicles that people bring out of storage, they park next to their house, refueling, charging up, heading out.
That's not what I'm referencing. I'm referencing long-term storage in a residential neighborhood.
So, but I think it's an important distinction, and I just want to make sure I'm understanding you correctly. You're talking about a vehicle that's parked on private property, not in the right-of-way,
That's correct.
So, yeah, what Jeff's been speaking about is these are us regulating our right-of-way. When it comes, I mean, right now, you have under your permitted camping, somebody can have somebody living in their driveway in an RV. That is part of the ways that we're trying to address the unhoused is through these permitted camping provisions that are exceptions to our prohibited camping provisions. So, it would be a much bigger discussion to be talking about regulations of the private property. What everything we're talking about here is about regulating our right-of-way and managing our right-of-way through vehicular traffic that is road ready. So that's why I wouldn't have anything of past discussions to reference regarding the problem I think you're talking about.
Okay, it's a problem I do want to explore, because I think it's worth sewing up for a whole variety of public safety reasons. And in doing, I see that they might be apples and oranges, but they're still in the same fruit basket. I could get here, but I want to get here by strengthening some of the existing codes. And if part of this code is allowing for folks to camp in an RV on private property, I would think it's not that big of a leap to then go to the regulation of RVs on private property and asking the question, when we look at municipalities all up and down the West Coast who have stronger stronger code around storage in a neighborhood, why can't we explore, when we hopefully approve this, why can't we also explore strengthening code or adding stronger language that would prevent the long-term storage of an RV in a space on private property where, the front or side yard where it's not intended? It's not safe, and I'm seeing it, there may be vehicles that are moving around less and less, but there are vehicles that are parked in front of houses, literally in front of houses, not on the street, but literally in front of houses more and more.
So I'm going to jump in. So I think what I would want to avoid is unintentionally having a serial work session on this topic where we come with one topic and you kind of put a comma and then we come back with the next one. So I think being really clear, does the majority of the council want to have a completely separate conversation about regulating RVs on private property and relooking at your law, your code? Like, do you want to do that, which is a little bit separate, I think, than, I hear what you're saying.
Yeah.
But what I don't want to do is set up an expectation where you say, okay, I'd like to talk about this, and then we're now generating another work session that actually the majority of you haven't agreed to.
Well, then
So-
I hear you.
Yeah.
And I'm overdue for a work session poll anyway, so I'll float one out there, and we'll get back to this. This is fascinating. I appreciate the approach, and I thank you for the creative thinking.
Thank you. If Counselor Groves and Counselor Ye in the queue, after the two of you with that first round, if there is not additional discussion, I'm going to turn to the council president for a motion because we have 8 minutes remaining. So, Counselor Groves.
Thank you, Mayor. Maybe a semicolon, not a comma. Jeff, thank you very much for the work you and your team have been doing and are continuing to doing. It is making a difference in our community. I can support this program, but I'd like you to add a component of safety check, because I'm seeing vehicles out there that are, in fact, I've got pictures right here on my phone, that are not roadworthy. One that the police helped us track down had a boat on top of a sedan held on by one cam buckle strap. One strap. What happens if that hits another car? That boat's going to get launched at head height. Somebody's dead. So I have a great concern with some of the things I'm seeing. I mean, that was one of the latest ones there.
Good times.
It's like it's about an 8-foot tall stack of stuff on top of the car. Again, they get in an accident and that stuff goes flying and somebody gets hurt or worse. So if we could add a component on that about safety, make sure they have brakes. I've seen vehicles being towed that they stop by bumping into the vehicle that's towing them. It's just been crazy out there, and we got to bring this under control. Because again, it's not just the people operating these vehicles that can get hurt. It's just the motoring public, and it's a hazard. The other thing is I'm seeing far less parking issues than what we confronted just a few years ago, as I've shared with you. But one of the things I'm seeing is in zones that are marked 2-hour parking and also commercially marked vehicles, and I'm speaking specifically about West Eugene, I'm seeing the same people in the same spots, and then your teams will come along and they move across the street. But they're in zones that don't allow them to be there, period. So that shouldn't be subjected to the 72-hour and the movement and the clock starts over again. My understanding, is that correct?
It sounds correct. I think you know the rules out there. I would have to know the street and the zones, but you're correct. If it's
Ocean and
commercial,
West 13th.
okay, fair enough. I'd like to talk to the team.
Okay,
Yeah.
yeah, and I'm not complaining about the team, but I just want to make sure they understand the rules as well. But anyhow, that is going on out there, and it's about the same 4 or 5 RVs. And I guess with that, I'm just going to stop right there. Again, thank you for your work.
I'm going to just jump in. Sorry, I know you're trying to be quick. This is in the same vein of semicolons. So doing a vehicle navigator program that you've costed out at $35,000, adding a second piece on where we're also doing safety inspections is not going to be in that same price range. So if you want to move forward with this, and have us continue to explore that and come back with a second proposal. I don't see how you do both of those things under the same pilot. So I'm thinking through on the fly, like whether you just postpone this and ask staff to do more work and to include a safety measure, or how you want to bring that back.
Well, let me ask our attorney this. So what happens, city attorney, if we go through and we help with this process and we knowingly turn loose a vehicle that has significant safety issues in operating on our streets?
My understanding is that the navigator is more of a facilitator of the administrative process. They're not inspecting the vehicle, so there would be no knowing component to it. They're not putting eyes on a vehicle. They are helping the individual navigate forms and processes. So I would dispute the term knowing first, and then, because that's just not their role. They're not an inspector role, but that is why you would, if we wanted to have a safety component, you would have to hire a certified inspector and so that's why it is different. It wouldn't be the same individual doing those things.
Okay, we have a lot of vehicles out there that, by my untrained eye, just don't look like they're operating safely on our streets. And that does concern me. So maybe that's something, as we continue this serial meeting, we could, we could add in.
Trying to avoid this area.
Sure, yeah.
Punctuation acknowledged. Councilor Ye.
Thank you, Mayor. And thank you so much, Jeff, for bringing this forward. I really appreciate that you guys stuck with this and brought it back. I think this is some really great work. Are you imagining we're going to do an RFP for this navigator, or do you already have a partner in mind?
We would do an RFP for it. I think it would have to be someone who understands DMV processes, maybe has a license around vehicles. So, yeah, it'd be a process.
So when did we think this would start realistically? If it was passed, assuming, right?
So if the money was in our budget, I think our team would start quickly, our homeless services team.
Okay,
Yep.
excellent.
They're doers.
That's great. So I'm a huge fan of this. Tickets and towing are not going to solve homelessness, and it's not going to help people get stable and ready to take a next step in their lives to be in a better place. But something like this could, because everyone needs help sometimes, and just the simple act of getting a license can be a big deal when you aren't sleeping and don't have a safe place to be. And being able to help someone with $35,000, I mean, that's such a great return on investment, I think, and it's a pilot project, so I think, Councilor Groves has some really great ideas of how we could add to it, but a pilot is never perfect, and you try it and see how it went, and you can always add on to it later. So I do think, your team can be watching and figuring out, how can we do this better in the future? Our new partner can be figuring that out as well, and we can look for those opportunities to add things. And I think a safety component is a good idea to think about for the future. But I don't want it to hold up doing this right now, because I think this is a good idea and we should move forward. And as a side note, I am 100% not interested in micromanaging people's private property and how or where they park their vehicles on said property. So I would definitely vote no on that, and I just wanted to share that with you since we're talking about it. And that is it.
Thank you, Council. I'll now turn to the Council President to put a motion forward.
Move to direct the city manager to establish a one-year pilot program for vehicle ownership navigation services.
Second.
Any further discussion from Council? Seeing none, I'll now take a vote for this motion. All in favor, please raise your hands. 1, 2, 6, 7. All opposed? 1. And the motion passes with a vote of 7-1. Thank you all. That
Thank you.
concludes our agenda for today. Thank you, staff. And I now close the June 9th, 2025 City Council work session. We are adjourned.